our incredible powerhouse artist of herself, Oscar-winning Regina King, as our moderator. It's been a joy to know Chloe's brilliance in the early days and to see it manifest into such gorgeous artistry today. I'm so thrilled to welcome Chloe back to her Film Independent family. Please welcome Chloé Zhao.
I can see you, I can touch you. Yeah. Oh my goodness, thank you everyone for coming. Look at this full house. Well, full house as it should be. You are a special, amazing filmmaker. So honored to have this opportunity to, take this ride through all of the beautiful stories that you've given us. I won't make you cry.
I mean, look who this is. Holy shit. We were Zoom buddies.
Zoom buddies.
The COVID years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that because there were a few moments on those Zoom buddies I was just happy to see another woman that, was feeling the same things that I was feeling in this crazy time, We were both, I was about to connect it to something, but I will say this, we were both in a place of very concern about film and theater and all of that, and we still have some concern, but the success of Hamnet recently tells us that the theater is here. Going to the movies is something that is not going away. I was saying that on the Zoom, and Chloe was like, God willing. Yeah, but you proved that to be true. Let's get into it. Let's start from the beginning, from our introduction to you, songs my brother taught me. Beautiful film. I guess one of the biggest things that I was asking myself when I first was introduced to you as a filmmaker, and then did my research and found out that most of the performers that we see in your films, especially songs my brother taught me and the writer, are not actors. They're not trained actors. And for that to be your first film, that's a bold, ballsy move to make. But there's a part of me, just as a storyteller, could see why you would make that choice, but I'm just curious to just hear, was there were you just sure about that, or did you have some trepidations that came along with that?
Looking back at it, there were quite a few things that led to that decision. I was in film school around the time when I was about to make my thesis film, which was Songs My Brother Taught Me. There was an emerging trend of upcoming filmmakers going to places and working with people who are from that place. And then, so there was at East South and Wild, Ben Zylan's film, and Josh Safdie, which I reminded, this year he has Marty Spring, but he made a couple films back when I was in film school. They were working with just local people he found on the streets in New York. And I think part of that, it was out of necessity. So they didn't have any money. And we had to, Songs My Brother Taught Me, which took place on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And just getting anybody out there. I mean, we made the film with $100,000, and so to find professional actors who have the amount of time that we need to have them, and have them to just fly out there and live there and immerse in the community and learn the way they speak, and the way, we can't afford 3 days of that. So and then also, like, there is if I were a filmmaker, I probably would have been a private detective or an archaeologist. I like understanding why a place is the way they are and why people live the way they do. And so all those things combined together, it became like, I think 3 films later, working with non-professional actors who are part of the land and the places that we're filming at.
Right. Well, I mean, was there something particular about Pine Ridge that, when you were going on this exploration to immerse yourself into a group, a community? Why Pine Ridge? Because 2 films kind of ended up coming out of the same
And
area.
then actually, we went back to Pine Ridge for Nomadland. I knew I gotta go back to South Dakota, gotta get Fern to drive that van to South Dakota, to the reservation. Things happen in life. Sometimes feels like by chance, but then your subconscious is driving you. Now that I've learned some language around that, it's never completely by chance. But I remember about the time making my thesis film, feeling that I'm not going to be able to make a better film in New York than what people are already doing. New York is such, there are filmmakers that are just so deeply rooted in that place, and I didn't think it was my place to be. And I was yearning for a connection with nature, that having lived in New York for almost a decade at a time, and it's the same yearning I had as a little girl living in Beijing to Inner Mongolia and to the plains. And there's something about the plains that are very different than farmland, because the plains, they haven't been agriculturally developed, so the soil has not been tilted. Right, so you can still walk around on the plains of Inner Mongolia or South Dakota in the Badlands and find a piece of animal bone that literally had not moved for a long, long time. And if you believe in energy, it does something to you. There's something wild and ancient about it. And being in New York for that long, where everything is tilted and changed and built up, and there's almost nothing old left. And I knew. I was yearning for that, and then I saw a photo in National Geographic by a photographer named Aaron Huey, and the image showed a Lakota teenager on a horse, and he had a bandana on, and he was at a gas station getting cigarettes, and he was on a horse. And there's something about that image. There's so many contradictions in it. I thought, there's already within one frame so much polarity, so much tension, so much paradoxes. What else is there?
Right, yeah. Making sure I wasn't getting I'm like, oh, I will not be here, not be paying attention. Yeah, well, it shows your frames, the way you frame the land. Everything that you said, that you say that in those frames, that's and I call them visual symphonies, but when you get the story behind that symphony, then the music sings even louder. I'm curious, when you were in Pine Ridge doing the songs My Brother Taught Me, was that experience, because you mentioned the Lakota teenager on the horse, did that spark the idea for the story of the writer, or?
The writer, yeah. So when I was making songs, I got to know this group of Lakota cowboys, I didn't realize these things mixed. I didn't know much about America outside New York and LA at the time. And then to see that, the complicated relationship between these two archetypes coming together and creating a new culture. And I became so fascinated with them. And I tried to put them in songs my brothers taught me, which, looking back at it, be careful when you get too excited about things that's outside your main storyline. I remember going with songs, because I shot songs without a script. I'll never do that again. I shot it with a treatment. Because when you shoot with a treatment, I realized as an editor, going to the edit, you don't, yes, you have A, B, C, D, but you don't have the connecting dots between. Oh my God, I can't get my character from this scene to the next scene.
How did you manage to get them there?
I had to shoot more a year later with Canon 5D, which, drove my EP crazy, because there were some, the quality is just not the same, but we couldn't afford it. Next time, shoot your establishing shot, have your character walk from A to B. I know it's boring, but shoot it that day. And still making the same mistake on Hamnet. It couldn't help it.
But that's the beauty of being a director. I mean, I feel like, my own personal experience, because I still feel like I'm young in this space of directing. I feel like I'm just learning all of the time, learning from my mistakes often, but it kind of feels like I'm still expressing, I'm even, it connects you to those feelings of when you're younger, where you kind of, you don't care if you're making a mistake, I'm going. And then you're like, oh shit, yeah.
Really nice, and also because the cinematic language is very young, it's a baby language. So we're all gonna stumble, no matter how successful they are, because it's just changing, evolving so much. And back to the cowboys, because I had a treatment, I got, whenever there's something exciting happen, I go, let's go shoot that. And so I love that first film. This meanders a little bit, and actually that word is being used to describe all my films. Well, it meanders. It's okay.
It is okay. It is okay. And even, but still.
Drink some coffee.
But I do feel like, meander, it might be the word that's being used, but just the, I can't remember the lead main character in Songs My Brother Taught Me, the brother. Johnny is kind of in this meandering place, you know what I mean? And so I was with it, I was following it, yeah. One thing that I also did catch is, and maybe I'm wrong, but some of the non-actors, they were in the writer.
Oh, they're also in Nomadland, playing the guitar.
Right, yes. It's like with full lines and roles and everything. I was like, oh, so she found these non-performers, non-actors, and was like, you are now an actor.
It's our little cinematic universe.
Yeah, the Zhao universe.
Whenever you're in South Dakota, these characters will appear. No, I think some of them are acting now. Mostly as stuntmen.
No, some of them are actually acting, and because I actually saw the writer before I saw Songs My Brother Taught Me, so I went back, and so I was like, well, wait a minute, that's the guy that bought the horse. Yeah. But I love that because you fully, and that's what you want as an audience member. You want to feel like everything that's going on in life, you're kind of leaving that behind, and that's why we go to have film experiences. We want to be in that world, and you do such a great job bringing us to that world, and then you take a hard, well, I wanted to go to Nomadland, but we'll come back to Nomadland. So, the writer, then you did Nomadland, and then you take a hard left. Yeah, that's so badass. With
You do that too.
not as badass, but I was just so curious as, because you use the same camera rig on Nomadland, on the Eternals, and on the Eternals you have all of this money. What was the reasoning for same camera rig, you know? There's a lot, that's loaded.
Yeah, isn't that, yeah. Do I tell the joke first?
Joke.
Joke, it's kind of, it lingered into Hamlet a little bit, but in Eternals I remember our lovely cinematographer, Ben, he said to me, I know you don't need a crane, I know you don't want to use these, but can we just like pretend we're gonna do a shot for the boys? They're really bored. They really want to show you this awesome rig. Let's just do one shot for them. I'm like, okay, but I'm not gonna use it. He said, it's okay. So, but I have to say,
The toys.
I know, but I have to say, I look back at it and I thought maybe I was a little too dogmatic. Dogma can happen on every channel. It could be, the formula of big blockbuster films. But also, I was very dogmatic of how, okay, I made Nomadland, they write it this way, and I'm gonna make Eternal exactly that way. And that created a lot of difficulties, because, for example, I wanted the Malik's non-cutting roaming cameras, right? And yeah, you can do that with actors in the balance as much as you want. But when you are moving that camera through space and looking at it, the Celestials creating universe, what you're doing to your visual effects supervisor is brutal, because you're asking them to create reality. And also how much would that cost? Right, and there's no place to hide, and I was like, I'm not using any Atmos. I don't want anything in the foreground. They're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? So, but I was holding on to something I know, so I could feel safe. And then looking back, I thought, of course, a couple of awesome crane shots would be amazing to create scale, to help in the edit. Put something in the foreground, put some Atmos, it's gonna make the monsters integrate so much better. So I didn't want to come here just to talk about my mistakes, but I feel like those are most helpful, so when I come into Hamnet, I try to let go and create a very safe environment, so I don't have to hold on to any dogmatic belief that I have to keep myself safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting though, because I'm with all of your films, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. You cover different terrain in Nomadland writer and songs, similar terrain, but you're in this mythological world. You're in Elizabethan England, American West, but you still are able to keep those themes of humanity in all of those spaces. And I'm just curious, is there, when it comes to Eternals, and I mean, you did some writing on Eternals, but it wasn't like your baby, I would say, like songs and writer, Nomadland. Did you bring that humanity to the story of Eternals, or did that already exist, like those themes?
Well, I became one of the screenwriters later, but the treatment, the initial idea was created by the Furpos and their cousins, now brothers. And but it came from Jack Kirby's creation. But I remember going to Marvel and Nate Moore, my producer, put me in a room with a sheet of paper and then they locked the door and said, read it, see if you like it, and that's the treatment. And I remember, as I was telling you earlier, I couldn't quite believe what I was reading because this is going to be an opportunity where I get to do a Greek play. At least that's how I saw it. It's about a pantheon of gods. Each of them, because of their powers, therefore have a different relationship with humanity. And the whole film is going to be about them debating and discussing the nature of humanity or whether humanity should be allowed to break out of the natural order and be saved. Judgment. You know, I thought, oh my God, you know, making the first 3 films, I was, for the first 10 years, I was exposed to so much more spirituality and way of life that I never knew before. And I thought, with this container, I get to talk about everything I learned and everything I'm still questioning. You know, are we the answer to the universe? And are we special? You know, should we allow to, is humanism moral? You know, should we continue to exist at the price to pay of every other living thing in the universe, right? So those are the bigger questions I wanted to ask. And of course, it was volcanic, for those who have seen it. You know what I mean by volcanic. And it exploded out of me, and I didn't think I had the kind of experience to contain it. And then 4 years later, it took me that long to cool down that lava and try to excavate what I tried to say, and Hamnet is part of that.
I can't wait to get into Hamnet, but we're not going to get into Hamnet yet.
Okay.
Because we have to spend a little time with Nomadland. We truly do. Yes. I mean, we have to all of the accolades that you received for Nomadland, rightfully so. But first I want to get into you have Francis McDormand. We're not getting into Hamnet, but you have Jessie Buckley. 2 totally different spaces, but was the process, like, it's the difference between that communication with Francis in Nomadland and Jessie obviously Jessie's, Agnes is a mother, quite different, and we're gonna get into that. But just what was the difference in the 2 process? Because in Nomadland, you guys were like living with the people and living in RVs and things like that. So
that's a really good question because I haven't quite put Fran and Jessie in the same, box and look at
I
them
think they're
together.
both such powerhouse actresses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely. Very interesting because now I think about it, I think about the sort of, they both have neither of them can handle any dissonance. Like they cannot not be completely present, authentic in the moment. It drives them nuts to pretend, right? So, Fran in Nomadland, there was a moment when we were in Nebraska, in Scottsbluff, and in a car mechanic place, and the scene I wrote of her, the mechanics trying to sort of cheat her, trying to get her to sell the van. Kind of typical, sketchy mechanic character. And she gets very angry in the script. She like shouts at him, it's like, this is my home, you know, like you blah blah blah. So that was the scene. And then we found that this guy, and he's been a mechanic his whole life, his father's business. And he's the loveliest person you can imagine exists on earth. And he said to us, out here, cars are like horses to the cowboys. If your car breaks down, your life breaks down. You're not gonna be able to go to work, you're not gonna be able to get toilet paper, and you can't survive. So people come with like try to get me to fix their lifeline, and most of them don't have money for it. So like he's like this community, this guy. So then I go, well, this is your role though. So, so he argued with me for like half an hour. But that's not nice. I was like, yeah, but that's your character. You're pretending. Get it? And then he's like, okay. So then Brian's like, we good? And like, yeah. So we do the scene. Poor guy just could not do it. He keeps saying, but you know what, actually I think I would do for you is this. And then Brian and I was thinking, even she said, it's like, I'm gonna give it to him. I know what to do. She had it prepared. And then, but the guy was not giving her that performance.
Anyone can believe it.
Yeah, no, and anyone else, I mean, anyone less than what Fran's capacity and the incapacity to be inauthentic would just deliver it. She has the tools to do it. But take and after take, she just kind of looked at me, and then she's like, I got this, I can do this, hold on. And then it was like, yeah, you're supposed to. And then finally, the best she could do was the clip we showed when we first showed Nomadland. She was like, this is my home. It was said in a very restrained way. And then I remember, I said, God, this is really good. And she's like, okay. And then she went away, and the next day, I realized it did bother Fran, because she was like, I'm not giving you what you want. And then I had to remind her, oh, sorry, I didn't pay attention to you, because I didn't think you worried about any of this stuff. But you gave us exactly what I wanted, because you were present with this other person. And Jessie is the same. She's exactly the same like Fran. So yes, they're professional actors, but I was also able to work with them as non-professional actors. Werner Herzog said, can you be present in the moment or not, professional or non-professional? Can you let go of your idea of what you want the scene to be, or you want the director want the scene to be, but truly react to with the person in front of you? That's what I'm talking to, what I'm talking. So I felt very lucky. I feel like with the both of them, they were ready to go.
You did, man, because both their performances are just, oh my gosh, which brings us to Hamnet, to really get into Hamnet. That film is so good. Woo! I want us to see a clip of Hamnet before we get into it. I mean, I want to also say, girl, congratulations on just all of this. Everything, just made it up. No, we have not shown a clip of Hamnet. We have shown little bits of Hamnet. We're going to.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Wow. So, thank you. I didn't know what I was getting when I came to see that film. I've kind of adopted this thing as of the past few years that because critics just ruin films. I mean, the trailers ruin the film. So I've been, going to see films based on maybe just a small something that I've read, people that I know who are part of the filmmaking team are involved. And so I go in blind, not knowing, you know. I thought maybe something to do with Hamlet. I mean, Hamlet is closed. And, you know, it was you, so I went to see, and I should have probably known what I was going to see before. But it's harrowing, but it's so beautiful. I mean, the love stories that are happening in this story, the clip that we just saw, the Globe Theater that you guys reproduced and made it a space that turns loss into legacy. It's just simply gorgeous. So in that clip that we just watched, anyone who has seen the film knows that there's devastating loss that that Agnes is and William are carrying, and through that grief, through that turning the grief to public art, enduring art, kind of brings them back together. It's just so beautiful how you did that. And when I'm watching that scene, and you have kind of 3 different plays kind of going on at the same time. You have the actual play that William Shakespeare wrote. You have all of these like 300-400 extras, and then this subject matter that's so devastating happening all at the same time. How did you conduct that? How did you, what is your conversations with the 300 actors? And Agnes needs to reach through that crowd and connect with Hamnet. Like, what the hell, man?
Well, first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
In many ways. When that play was staged back then, it was around the time of 2 plays, not just one. And what we believe also, it was a few years after his son had died, right, that this Hamlet was written. So it's not from some genius ideas from the sky, but this was a man who's lived at a time where the collective grief was so immense, and he has also been living with a broken heart himself. And so recently someone said to me that grief is the placenta that you must allow or the chrysalis, you must allow yourself to rest in, to sit in, to be reborn. And if we don't, like Agnes, she was frozen, right, in her grief. And we can assume that 300 audience member at that time, many of them were frozen in their grief, having lost so many loved ones in the play. And when you sit in there being grinded down, you know, for a child to be reborn is excruciating. And what do? You reach for poetry, you reach for music and storytelling and metaphor, something, the mystery, something that could explain something that cannot be explained. And to get back to your question, the grief that Agnes was carrying and everyone in that Globe Theater was carrying, it is so unbelievably immense and chaotic. It's like entropy, you know, it doesn't make any sense and it has no edges. It needs a container for it to be transformed. And that container is the shape of the theater, is the 200 crew that are holding in every position, and it is the words of William Shakespeare, right? And it's our storyboards. We do the some work as filmmakers. Storyboards, and it is our frames. So we keep thinking about contain, 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 contain. And once the container is set, then we use a DreamWorks specialist. Her name's Kim Gillingham, and she comes from a union tradition, and she worked with me and Jesse and Paul a lot throughout the film. But what she also did is that she would do active imagination, a form of meditation, with all 300 extras and 200 crew. So for about 10 to 15 minutes before the take, so that, and then Max Richter's music was on repeat playing, and so that all of us is vibrating at the same emotion as Annie's. So when the container is that strong, then we can conjure this collective grief to its most expressive. And when that kind of energy meets sharp edges, that's when like depth, love, structure, that's when it goes deep. And once it goes deep, I can tell Jesse, Paul, they're feeling the energy from the audience. So it becomes like almost like a collective communal ritual. Like
Church.
I felt like I was in church. I was in temple, whatever was happening those days. And the decisions we were making, if we talk to any of the crew members and the actors, it almost as if something bigger is moving us. The decisions would come so naturally. Nobody is second thinking. It's just, and I love that feeling of oneness when you work with a company of people. And that does take everyone being willing, feeling safe enough to open their hearts and to be vulnerable and to join this collective chant. So spiritually, that's how we did it. And but the container part is all these, but the last thing I would say is that container has to be created for this purpose, which means that it can't be like, oh, this is how I think the scene is gonna go, so I'm gonna set a container to achieve this. The container is created so the actors can conjure, right? So, but therefore it's flexible also. Like, for example, we had these cranes in the first couple of days, and energetically having these gigantic machines in that circle was causing some strange feeling, and our DP was the one that goes, I want them out. So we shot the entire sequence of the ending on ladders and then box. That's it. So that the shape doesn't get disturbed.
And that feeling of containing, it's so funny, because the toys that we use is a part of the language, and I can totally understand where a crane had no place there. But none of us watching the film felt like we were missing that, in any way. It's just simply beautiful. Girl. Woo! Thank you. Well, I guess I can sit here and talk to you about so much more, because I kind of, you said some things in there about the plague, and it's not lost on me that Hamnet would come after we get hit with the plague, that's not lost on me, I think that everything is, I know people talk about serendipity and, whether you want to call it by chance or not, everything was moving in concert to make Hamnet happen now, opposed to, Eternals needed to happen for Hamnet to happen, definitely. So they're telling me, y'all have some questions. And they put them in my pocket. And even though I have more questions, I'm gonna go to y'all's questions. Are you ready? Okay. First question, was there a moment on set when you questioned the film or yourself? I'm gonna assume, is that any film or Hamnet?
All the time.
Yeah.
Any film, ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah.
part of the course.
I always feel like, I think we have a film. That's usually like, there's some stuff people want to see. That's my default.
I'm so glad someone else has that too. My team is always like, you can never just say amazing, right? I'm like, no, you're always. So answer to that question is yes. Both. Can you tell us about your routine the night before and beginning of day when you're in production?
Oh, you mean like a daily routine?
Yeah.
I would go home and I would I make sure I eat a really nice Asian meal when I'm in England, something Asian, and then I watch a little bit dailies if I there are times where I'm like, oh, I don't really want to see it because I don't think it's gonna work, and I'll be, I will not watching it, and then forcing myself to look at things. But mostly I go to sleep. I try to I look at some dog videos. Dogs, just animal funny videos, just sort of get some perspective. And then I go to sleep. I need a lot of sleep. And sometimes, and I also, because I believe I do a lot of dream work, so even when I'm sleeping, I'm working. So that's my routine. Lots of sleep.
My beau calls that the dog videos, that's washing your brain out.
Thank you. It's really like cooking videos, gardening, whatever blows your boat. For me, it's like dogs.
Dogs are good.
Yeah.
Hi, Chloe. I'd love to hear more about how you break down your script with your director of photography and other heads of department. Also, when you're shooting, what's your method to maintain a visual language across a film? Best, Ari.
That is the most professional question I've been asked ever. Break down the script. Okay, I because we couldn't really afford crew members for the first two films, like we pretty much had to be our own AD. So and my VP and I and Josh and I, we basically I mean, for us, weather is everything, right? Like you look at the things that you can't change. And in this case of Hamnet, it's also weather. The forest is gonna lose its leaves, and there's babies, and it's things that necessities first. That's the first round, and then consideration from the actors is big. I think is that what you're asking, Ari? For ADs, or is it for my other HODs? I asked them to work like actors, as if they were actors, meaning come to work, hold the tension between knowing and not knowing what's going to happen, right? Do all your research and then throw it out and react moment to moment to your own emotions, and the emotions of the characters. That's emotional truth is the only thing I care about, right? So break down the script that way. And don't worry about whether that's gonna be something that I wrote, that, don't try to preserve that. If something's coming up in you because something happened in your own lives, use it, and then show me. Most the time it's gonna make it better, right?
That's awesome, because that pushes your department heads to, one, feel like they have some ownership in the filmmaking process, but also that it pushes them to be more creative. You know, so often we get caught up in the schooling of it all and not the, what does it feel like?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Thank you, Ari. How do you separate the different roles
The
you?
visual language.
Oh.
You leave it to my DP. No, to consistent visual language, again, there's not such a thing. I don't try to go, this is how I want this to look like Iron Linden. I want this to look like, this and that, Tree of Life. No, because your DP also has to work like an actor. Meaning like, it has to be a real emotional reaction to the moment, whether the camera is his body. Is his body feeling what the audience are gonna feel, right? Because that camera is the audience. So if my DP is, or the operator is feeling like, oh, this is way too much, I can't handle it, then back up. If it's like, I feel like I'm leaning in and going forward, it's more of a somatic reaction that I'm interested in, moment by moment, influenced by the weather, by the energy on the set. And so, but if you do that, it becomes consistent in a very strange way, instead of imposing a idea from the start. Doesn't mean we don't watch references. We might start somewhere always on a day, but then they start to shift into it is consistent because every single person on the set is reacting to something together, and then their decisions gonna make it visually consistent.
So when your DP is hiring camera operators and your DP, it's with that mandate?
Absolutely.
So they know, have you ever had a camera operator that's like, oh, yeah, no, I can't even get with that?
No, because I'm lucky enough that my operators are very in their bodies. They feel, and then they all have documentary experiences as well, like really great documentary filmmakers, and they know how to feel and be in the moment, and knowing things are unpredictable and constantly trying to dance with the actors. I can't live without an operator like that.
Is that part of also why you, I'm assuming, love using natural light? Would you say that is kind of part of the?
Yeah, I mean, Hamnet is not as much natural, it's natural, but it's very lit, but then lighting in a way that the operator can move.
Okay, adaptation always leaves something out. And I'm curious about what you chose to add to this story, particularly for Will's character. What was the intention behind bringing more Shakespeare passages into the text and showing us his writing and his life?
Yeah, there was a discussion Maggie and I had from the start, and for those of you who read the book, Shakespeare is a very small part, a lot smaller in the book, and doesn't have a lot of play and his work in it. We knew from the start we wanted to be a two-hander, and it is going to, the moment in the end of the film when they look at each other, when she says, look at me, and they look at each other, the whole thing is leading up to that. And I don't want to get too esoteric about this, but Agnes and Will are the yin and yang energy within myself. There are always these two very polarizing energies that, you can simplify as to say one is the intellect, one is the feelings, right? And one is civilization, one is nature, one is being, one is doing, one is yin and one is yang. And they love each other. They fit so beautifully, but at the same time, when something difficult happens, deep tragedy, they also can lose the capacity of seeing the world from the other person's perspective. Like they grieve very differently, and therefore they stop seeing each other. And it actually took them coming together for the catharsis to happen. And in a way, it's like the two opposing forces in myself seeing each other. And so we knew we want that structure. And that's why we needed to bring Will back in. And also, knowing the audience coming to see this film, you're going to want to see the play in the end. Because in the book, the play ends after the first scene. It ends on "Remember me." That's it. That's the last sentence of the book. And the written language is so much older than the cinematic language, so much more potent. So when you have black words says "Remember me" on a white page and then blank, what that conjure in the reader is not the same as Paul says "Remember me" and then cut to black. So we had to write 25 more pages of Hamlet and all that ending, just trying to potentially get some kind of bottle up the feeling of "Remember me" blank.
I did not read the book, but wow. I'm assuming those that read it definitely felt like you took "Remember Me" a little bit further.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a couple. Okay, I just have to ask. I know I'm getting the sign, but and I know you have someplace to go, but this is just funny. What is your favorite Pokemon?
There is a penguin one. I forgot his name, but it's a penguin. And it has a family tree, it turns into powerful penguins. But I like penguins. I forgot what it's called, but it's a little penguin. Do you know Pokemon?
I know Pokemon, but I don't. Pikachu, I guess. Pokemon.
Yeah. Great. I hope that's helpful.
I wish Pokemon Asker left his name like Ari or her name like Ari, or their name. I know you have to go, but thank you so much, Chloe.